For those people unfamiliar with my voice, my name is Peter Mingils. We run a company called PM Marketing. Some people call us as Network Leads, and some people call us as the Gourmet Leads guys. The precision model. A lot of people just don't know how to work leads, what to expect. Chances are a lot of these things are new to you, and I'm going to give you some of the things that just like, you tap yourself on the head and you just think, what was I thinking? Or if you've never done this stuff before, you know that this is the way it's supposed to be. I mean, these things happen, and they happen for reasons, and they happen to all of us. You just kind of don't dwell on the negative stuff and just kind of go with the positive stuff. When we talk about things like a numbers game, it's like words that have no meaning anymore to you. When people say, well, it's a numbers game, well, I mean, what does that mean? But the neat thing is when people say it's a numbers game, you really have to understand what that means. Let's just say whatever we're talking about, whether it's sponsor rate, bringing a new person in the business, whether it's a dialing rate, meaning how many dials you're going to make before you get a connection, whether it's how many people you're bringing to your business or bringing to your plan, STP, show the plan, how many people you're bringing in. Let's just say for this example, it's 1 out of 10. Whatever it is, 1 out of 10 dials before you get somebody, 1 out of 10 people you speak to before you bring them to a conference call, or 1 out of 10 people that you show your business to eventually join your business. Let's talk about you buy 10 leads using this as a number, or you buy 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever leads it might be, and we're talking about 1 out of 10. Let's talk about some of the things that could happen on those 10. So what happens with the other 9 people? I mean, what would you think? Well, what do the other 9 say to you when they don't go to the conference call? Well, they say various things. They say various things sound soft, and they say various things that sound kind of not so soft or maybe kind of negative. They say things, well, I'm really not interested at this time. They might say things like, well, no, I just don't think I'm interested in that type of opportunity. Or they might say, I'm kind of happy where I am, or I just don't have the money. Or they might say things like, no, my husband wouldn't let me do that. I don't care what they're saying. The reality is they're not saying yes. And the hard part about working leads is what happens to you when you're getting those 9. And the reason why I like to focus on this is because that's going to be a determining factor whether you're going to make it with working with leads or maybe even make it working in this industry. It's not something that you should get upset about. It's not something that you should get depressed about. It's something, in essence, since we said it was 1 out of 10, if you're really thinking and being mature about it, you should have expected it. If you've ever flown on a plane before, and I'm sure many of you have, you jump in the plane, the pilot kind of gives it the gas, you kind of hit it hard, you can feel the weight, over your body again towards the back of the chair. As soon as you start going up a little bit, you start hitting these clouds. Well, it would be naive to think, where are most of the bumps? As you go through the clouds. So if you know what to expect, as you're going through the cloud bumps, you may not necessarily want to go through the cloud bumps, but they're a necessary part. And then once you get above the clouds, it's usually clear sailing, more or less. As it comes back down, what do you expect? You expect some cloud bumps. Not to expect that would be just silly, just not thinking. When we talk about a numbers game, I don't care how they say no to you. We're telling you, if it's 1 out of 10, if that's the numbers, 9 people are going to say no in one way, shape, or form. Let's take a look at your lead, and let's consider your lead neutral. And they don't become a good lead or a bad lead before they meet you. Now, I learned this a long time ago knocking on doors. Is if I knocked on the door, that person could have a really smiley, happy face, and when I knocked on the door, they could have either continued that and said, hey, come on in, we still can have, we had a party, or they could become real negative. So they became that after they met me, which puts you accountable for a lot of things that happens with the leads. Now, a lot of people that work leads would rather blame the lead as opposed to them. Here's something I learned a long time ago. I always write down the words, I am responsible. I am responsible. Whenever I do anything, I look at the feedback and I say, how am I responsible? And in reference to when you're talking to a lead, make sure that you focus on icebreakers. Listen to the icebreaker clips on the website. What you say when you get on the phone with that prospect is going to largely determine whether he's going to want to continue the conversation with you or not. So icebreakers is something you really need to focus on. Also remember that people never say what they mean. Now, I'm not suggesting that people are lying. 95% of the stuff that you hear is going to be the sounds good stuff, not necessarily the truth. So people always somewhat hide maybe, or they don't even realize that they're doing it. They kind of disguise what they really mean. The expression would be is people never say what they mean. You can have all the sales knowledge. You can have all these words in your head about the things that you could possibly doing. On the firing line, when you're actually talking to that prospect, you have to get certain things down to reflexes and like habits. So there's some things that you should drill for skill, or these some things you should practice. And some of the things I'm going to talk about now you can practice in your own head and also through the regular daily activities that you normally have. Now, you're going to have to draw this stuff out. And the best way to do it, of course, is take a blank piece of paper. Take both of your hands and kind of lay them right on the notebook or the piece of paper that you use. So you're going to have a left hand and you're going to have a right hand. And on your left hand, these are the things that you're going to say. This will make sense for you in a second. On the right hand, these are some of the things that your buyer or your new recruiter, your new prospect says. Now, if you were to put your hands together, you'd see your pinkies match up and your thumbs match up. The things that we're going to talk about right now is when they say, their right hand, when they say something, you're going to equally match it with your left hand so your fingers touch, and it'll make it real simple. You're going to start to do this consciously because you're going to draw out your right hand and your left, identify which one of the fingers are. When you start to do this often, in all aspects of your life, this will form habits. And when you guys are more prepared for the types of things that they're going to say, you will feel so much more comfortable with this whole sponsoring or prospecting process. So you ready? Here we go. Let's start off with what they say first. We're going to start with your thumb. So you got your right hand, trace out the finger. On your thumb, you're going to write down too much, too many, too expensive. Too much, too many, too expensive. Now we're going to go to your pointer finger. We're going to call that one noun. That's going to be your number 2 finger. For those of you that have more or less than 5 fingers, we'll have to do another exercise. But number 2 is noun. What is a noun? A person, place, or a thing. So that's your pointer finger. Number 3, that's your middle finger. We're going to call that verbs, or in parentheses you can put action. On your 4th finger, that's your ring finger if you wear a ring. That should be the words should, shouldn't, must, and can't. And your pinky, that's the littlest one, I guess. Oh, almost littlest. Number 5, that's universals. Universals, things like everything. All, never. Those are things called universals. On your left hand, see, that's what you're going to say. So remember, your right hand is what they say. On your left hand is what you're going to say. You're starting off with your thumb, and we're going to go counterclockwise. Finger number 1 on your left hand is going to be compared to what? Pointer finger number 2. What specifically? Number 3, middle finger. How specifically? Number 4 is going to be a little bit of a phrase and a couple of questions. So here's the phrase. What would, ... happen if? Next one. What would cause you to? The next one. What would prevent you from? Number 5, that's your little pinky on your left hand. All, question mark. Every, question mark. Never, question mark. Now, if you took your right hand and you matched it up with your left hand, you see the fingers match perfectly. So here's what usually happens. Now, here's the exercise. I spent a little bit of time with you diagramming it out. Now you can kind of work with it forever. Let's use your thumb. And they say, your product costs too much. Remember that? That's number 1. You are going to now say, you're the left hand, compared to what? Remember, people never say what they mean. And if asked to speak about it and try to explain it away, they usually do on their own. And they always usually come back to you if they're a prospect at all. So if you said, your pinky, that's universals. Nobody. See, that's a universal too. Nobody makes any money in network marketing. And you would say, nobody? In the history of the industry? Nobody's ever made any money in network marketing? And again, what would happen then is you put them on defensive a little bit politely, of course, and they would say, well, I didn't mean nobody. And again, you don't even have to handle it. They now have to explain it away. Go to number 4. Should. I should speak to my wife first. And that's some form of an objection, I suppose. You could say, well, what would happen if you didn't talk to your wife? Or what would happen if you didn't talk to your wife? Or what would cause you to say that? Or what would prevent you from doing it without your wife? And that type of thing. Or they might say, I can't right now. And you could say, well, what would happen if you did? Or what would prevent you from doing it right now? Remember, the reflex, most people never say what they mean. So if I'm teaching you how to handle all the things that they say, since they don't really say what they mean, what's the point? Makes no sense. Next thing, verbs. Oh, I'm going to get in 3 weeks. Or I got to find the money. How specifically? That's number 3. How specifically are you going to find the money? Let's see if there's some kind of a plan of action or it's just some wishful thinking. Sometimes you kind of have to lead people with decisions so they can figure out and internalize themselves how they have to find the money. Nouns, your pointer finger, that's number 2. I don't like that speaker. So you could possibly say, what specifically don't you like about them? Or, I don't like your vitamin A. And you could say, well, what specifically about our vitamin A is something that doesn't turn you on or something that doesn't get you too excited? The precision model is something you can sketch out and you can have right there on your computer screen as you're talking to people, or right there on an index card, or write it out on a notebook piece of paper. And when you're talking to people, use the precision model. You're going to go out and you're going to start talking to somebody, and then it's going to either go or not, and say it doesn't go. When you're done, you're going to look at your little precision model. I want you to role play some of the things that you could possibly have done or said according to this precision model, especially those people that have a tendency of postponing. Postponing when they say things like, well, I can't do it right now, or I have to wait until the holidays. So these are the types of things that you can use to start to overcome some objections or get people just to kind of figure out what they're saying. Constantly be thinking about what you can possibly do. Blame yourself all the time. I mean, this is what I learned from one of my best mentors. He always showed it was all my fault and all in my control. Something bad happened, I could usually go backwards and figure out the situation or the events that I could probably have done myself to turn it around. Think and grow rich. Good results, I could usually backtrack it a couple of times to say that's where you made the critical move where it turned it all around. So it works both ways. So think and grow rich, analyze your business all the time. Study an icebreaker. Icebreakers are like everything when you're working with leads because the prospect, again, is kind of neutral before they meet you. Based on your icebreaker, you need to turn them around or not. And then we talked about this precision model. What the buyer says is your right hand and what you say is going to be your left hand, and practice that. And even if you kind of have those skills internalized, those are some of the things you might want to teach some of your people. So on that note, guys, everybody have a great night, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks.